Hello, this is Steve from Vito's Leatherworks, and today's project is this Louis Vuitton Alma bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the leather bottom along with the leather sides, replace the zipper, and just give it a general cleanup. It's gotten pretty much a lot of wears. Not really much you can do with that. And I'm sure we could repair it, but it's not going to look good after it gets done if you're trying to patch the corners. So we're just going to remove this piece here and make a new bottom. Alright, let's get started. Now it's always good to have some guide marks before you take something apart, because basically you want to be able to put everything back to where it was and everything is centered and not crooked. Now this piece right here, we're going to salvage that piece because it's got the writing on there. I mean, obviously you know where the center of the bag is, which is here, which is there. But some guide marks along the way will not hurt. This is just basically a wax pen that I use. Now, when we go ahead and put the guide marks on the new leather, I'm not going to mark it with this. I'm going to put small pieces of tape. I don't want to make the leather, the new leather, dirty it up. I'll leave that up to the customer. I'm sure you wear a couple times this type of leather. It's natural leather, and there's no finish on it. And it's going to get, it's going to get stained, and it's going to get, the surface is going to get dirty, basically. It's going to give it a nice patina. We call that vachetta leather. It's just belting leather. It's just not finished. So it's really easy to get it dirty. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to stain the new leather with some dyes and some oils to kind of give it that look right here. Because you don't want to put new leather on this because it's not going to match the rest of the bag. You want to tint it down a little bit with some sort of dyes and some oils to give it that aged look. Alright, it's as easy as that. That's the easy part. And reassembling is the hard part. Alright, let's continue. Alright, once we got the bottom off, we've got three pieces here. We've got the bottom piece, we've got a piping in the middle, and we've got the side pieces. Now again, this is really important where you need to mark some guidelines, because what happens is that this needs to be perfectly rectangle, okay? And it's got to have that exact shape, or else it's not going to fit on the bag again. So once we can use a pen this time. Again, all you're doing is putting some marks here, let's say here, right? So when you take this apart, you take those marks, put it on the new leather. Then when you're stitching it, so those two lines need to match up. So you do that around the whole entire bag, and once you've stitched it up, it'll be exactly like what you have now. Because if it's a little crooked, it's not going to work. It's going to throw everything off. Just do as many as you like, as many as you're comfortable with. I don't really have a set marks that I do. I just eyeball it, and Do that. Try not to put the same amount of marks, like put 3 here and 3 here. When you take it apart, you're like, okay, which 3 was where? So put 2 on one side, 4 on the other, and this way you're not going to get it confused of which side goes to which side. And after you do so many of these, you kind of learn to do it automatically. All right, let's continue. So once we got the bottom off, we can start taking apart the zipper. We'll just take that out. Now this is the inside of the bag, okay? We're going to clean that before we put it on. Or, I mean, this side looks pretty clean, right? This is the underneath of it. I might have to just reverse that fabric, just use it this way. I'll figure something out. Now, again, I like to mark the things that I take apart, even though it's not a you know, it's pretty much straight line, right? But it's got some curves to it. So basically you want the distance of the zipper, let's say the right side, okay? From point A to point B, you want it to be a certain length. Now on this side, the outside of the flap of the purse, again from point A to point B, it's got to be the same distance, so when they zip up, it's identical, it's not twisted. So it can happen, believe it or not, when you're trying to glue and when you're trying to stitch things together, things do move, and now becomes one side becomes a little greater or lesser than the other side, and when you zip it up, things won't line up the same. So basically, I just mark the zipper and the bag and transfer that mark to the new zipper, and as I'm stitching it, I make sure those marks are exactly where they're supposed to be. So once it's done, I'm not going to have any issues of that, the two sides meeting up real nicely like they should be. Just little details like this, and you got to be careful though, you know. Once you take it apart, you didn't mark anything, then it's a little bit more work to try to straighten it out and line everything up so it looks like it's supposed to. Now these zippers, there's lots of zippers on the market, right? These zippers are called Riri zippers, R-I-R-I. Let's see if we can show you. I don't think you can see it. Anyway, they're Italian zippers. These are very nice zippers. Very smooth. The teeth are kind of rounded off, so when you open and close it, it's really smooth. Now what we're going to try to salvage the old slider to put it on a new zipper, because I don't have those sliders. I think it'll be okay. It's a size 6, which that's what this is here. We'll find out. If it doesn't, we're gonna have to go with, you know, the sliders that it came with. But I think we can make it fit. All right, let's continue. Now this particular bag, there's two stitches there. You guys see them? 1 and 2. But if you look on the inside, there's only 1 stitch. So the way that works, the zipper gets stitched on first, and then the lining gets put on, and then the second row of stitch is what holds the lining together. All right, let's continue. Now, anytime you take something apart, like removing something that's been stitched, you need to clean the old stitches off. You just have to do that. You can't leave You can't leave all the frayed stitches on there. It's going to look terrible if you do that. It takes a little bit of time, but that's just the right way to do it. And then when you try to go back to stitch it, you try to go back in the same holes. Well, that's another trick too. Well, I mean, there's no trick about it. Just have to be patient, and you're going to get every single hole. Probably not, but you're going to try your best to stitch it slow and to get it back into the same holes that you had, that the other stitches were in. Now, this is a lot of work. Yes, I agree. But if you love what you're doing, it doesn't seem that way. I mean, I think about projects like this after they come in, quite a bit before I even start it. How am I going to do it? Where am I going to start? It's just something that you've got to put some thought into it before you start doing anything. That's one side of the zipper off. Now we'll go ahead and clean all that stuff off there. Alright, let's continue. So we've got the old zipper and the new zipper. Right? So we're going to put this right next to each other. Line up the teeth right here. Okay. And just transfer the marks over from the old zipper to the new zipper. So now what happens is that the new zipper, it's got the marks on there. When you're stitching it, just line that up with the marks on the bag, which should be exactly where you took it off from. There's no mistakes. Okay. All right, let's continue. Now we're just going to apply some glue to glue the zipper on first before we stitch it, so it doesn't move on us while we're stitching it. Even though you've got some guide marks, if you don't glue it on there, it's kind of tough to keep it exactly where it's supposed to be. This glue just helps a little bit. This is an all-purpose cement. Now some people put a two-way tape around it, which is fine. It still works. I just got an old brush that I use for smaller areas and a larger brush for big areas. As long as the zipper stays put while you're stitching it, that's all that's important. Now, again, you've got your guide marks. Just make sure that, you can barely see it's right there. Make sure those line up when you're doing it. Now once it's glued on there, we can stitch this piece in. Then we can go ahead and clean the surface of this side here. Just kind of clean the surface while it's apart. I do want to clean it before I stitch the zipper on because I've got the marks on there. If I clean it, the marks are going to get removed basically, right? So I almost did. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not going to be able to see the marks then if I clean it. So anyway, I left the marks on there, and I'll clean it up after I go ahead and stitch it on there. Alright, let's continue. Alright, so now this is the leather we're going to use. It's a 2-3 ounce belting leathers, basically. You want to call it a shed of leather. Now the bottom piece is not a straight piece, okay? It's curved a little bit. You see it now. Okay, so I made a template of the shape of it. See how it's curved a little bit? And then we're going to cut it 2 pieces exactly same length, same width. And then we're going to cut a small centerpiece right there. And then we're going to reuse this little piece with the emblem on it. Okay? Now the difficulty is not just cutting the piece. Cutting the piece is no big deal, but trying to tint this leather to make it look like that. Now we can use a little bit of dyes, like airbrushing dyes and some oils, but it just takes a little bit of patience to kind of get the exact tone. Well, I can't say exact because it's going to be impossible to be exact, but you can get as close as possible. It'll be better than this, since you're not replacing the handles or the small posts. Then we're going to have to kind of tint these down to whatever shade we call that. So once we got everything marked, cut, we're going to go to dyeing section and see if we can tint this down a little bit to whatever tone we're going to use, maybe a tan. Now this leather needs to be skived, which means skiving means thinning out. Okay. For example, when the leather needs to be folded over, like hemmed edges is what we call it. See, this is kind of folded over. You can't fold the leather over when it's same thickness throughout. So just the edges, about 1/2 inch, we're going to thin that area down so we can fold that over nicely. Okay, I'll show you guys a little later. All right, let's continue. This is a bell skiver. So basically, it just thinned out that much so I can fold that over. All right, let's continue. This is the piping that's in between the side panel and the bottom piece. Now these are still wet. They're a little dark. They'll lighten up just a little bit. And once they dry, we're going to go ahead and put some conditioners on them. Then we're going to stitch everything back together. Alright, let's continue. Now these edges here, which are going to be visible, that's going to be, you know, the side of the bag. We're going to have to finish these off first. Now, we've got this product called Edge Coat. This is a light brown, it looks like. I just simply put it on the side to darken the edges a bit. Now, depending on the type of bag you have, some of them have a little bit of a reddish tint on the side and the edges, like a mahogany color, or more on the reddish side. This one, as old as it is, we can't really do too much of a light tone on it. So this will look a little better, a little more finished than if it were just raw edges on it. And I'm going to put a small thin bead that goes right on the edge, like a bead, like a line. That'll kind of mimic the original. Do the same on this one, because these are the only two pieces that's visible that's got raw edges on it. Sometimes I'll use a Q-tip or my finger to apply this on here. But we want to try to make it look a little kind of, you know, worn in, a broken in look. Not too bad. I think it'll work out good. All right, let's continue. So these are called creasers, right? Just they add a little line right on the edge. Now, most of the time these are hot when the impression goes down, but since the leather is still moist, it's pretty soft, I can do that without heating this up. So basically what we're going to put a little edge, little line right on the edge here. Most of the originals have those lines on there too. All right, let's continue. This was the small side pieces. And camera malfunction. You know, that usually happens sometimes when you don't have a cameraman, which I don't. I can only blame it on myself, because I'm the cameraman. And everything else in between. So I'm going to bring these two pieces together here. Okay, that's the original one that we salvaged. I'm going to tint that down a little bit to kind of blend that in a little. Once we condition it, that'll get a little darker because it's so light right now. So we're going to stitch this. We're going to stitch the side pieces first and glue that under, and then we're going to go ahead and attach the whatchamacallit, the piping right on there. All right, let's continue. Whenever I'm stitching something that was stitched before, I make sure that the stitch length is the same. So I grab the old piece and I practice stitching on there, make sure that it goes in the same holes. So that's about, you know, the only way you're going to find out the exact size of the hole. I'm sorry, size of the stitch length. So it goes in the same holes. And just kind of Gently just stitch it, make sure that it's going where it's supposed to go. Just having little issues with this. I think we've got the wrong size needle on there. Let me try again, see what it does. Sometimes the thread is not size, matching to the needle. If the thread is a little too thick and the needle's a little too thin, it's not going to work out good. Something's not right with this machine, with this thread. Alright, I'll fix it and let's continue. So it was the needle, it was a little too thin, that's why I wasn't stitching right. So now we're getting ready to stitch the piping on here. Now you see the end right there, where are you? I've thinned the end down, right? Because when it kind of meets together, you need to overlap it. So I don't know which part, how long it's going to be. So I've left this undone. So when I get close to the edge, I'll know exactly how close I'm going to be to that. Then I'll skive this, glue it, and come back and restitch it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the end right in the middle of the bag right there. So as I was saying, I've got some guide marks here that I'm going to go by. Just a matter of stitching it on there. Now once this piece is stitched on, then you can stitch the bottom to that. So what I'm going to do, after I stitch the bottom on there, I'm going to heat it up a little bit, dampen the leather so I can turn it inside out. So it'll be a little easier to control when it's nice and moist. And as I'm stitching here, I'd love to go to one of the Louis Vuitton factories. Just watch them work. It'd be really cool, I think. Be like a kid in a candy shop, man. Look. Alright, so we're going to stop this right here until I join those pieces together, and we'll come back, restitch the rest up. Alright, let's continue. Alright, the piping is in. when we put the bottom piece on, okay, when we put the bottom piece on, what we're going to do is we're going to follow this stitch right here, stitch a little bit on the inside, and then we're going to keep on going. Alright, so we got our markings on the side pieces and also our markings on the bottom pieces. So what we got to do now is just line those up, and hopefully everything will go good. It's always nerve-wracking, you know. Oh, again with the camera malfunctioning. Alright, let's try this again. Alright. So here goes nothing. The piece might hit the leather. Let me back it up a little bit. There we go. Now, if one mark is not on the other, the first one, I would say, it's difficult for the rest of them to line up. So it's important that once we start, especially around the corners, everything's got to line up, or else the rest won't line up. So far, so good. All right, not too bad. I'll know it once I turn it over. Make sure that everything is stitched where it's supposed to be. If we have to kind of touch up some small spots, we will. No big deal. And the bobbin ran out. Perfect timing. Now we can inspect it, see how it looks. It doesn't look too bad. It needs some conditioners though. It looks a little bit dry. We'll take care of all that. No big deal. Alright, I'll fill the bobbin and we'll continue. Okay, for those that you don't know what the bobbin is, this is a bobbin which needs to be full of thread because the machine has a top and bottom thread, and that's the bottom, and unfortunately we ran out. So we simply take this thread. Now there's a bobbin winder on the side of the machine. I don't like to do it that way. And it's done. Alright, so let's continue. Alright, now we've got our piece stitched, right? So we've got to turn this inside out like that, okay? And give it some shape. So we got to be careful because after the leather's been, dyed, it gets a little bit not brittle, but it needs some moisturizer and conditioners. So what we're going to do is we're going to wet the leather down first, soften it up a little bit. Now this is basically rubbing alcohol and water mixture together. This is going to soften it up and a little bit more pliable to move around. There we go. give it some shape. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to cut this off a little bit. Cut the excess off a little bit. We got a little bit too much on the side, so what we're going to do is we're going to trim that a little bit. Alright, let's continue. Now we got the bottom all stitched up, okay? Now in the original bottom, where's the bottom at? Alright, I can't find the original bottom. Anyway, the original bottom had a piece inside here to stiffen it up a little bit. So we're gonna cut a piece of fiberboard that gives it that same shape, because the original one was really glued on and it did not want to come off without getting torn, so I left it on there. Alright, let's continue. Now while I was working on the bottom pieces, I was waiting for the lining to dry. I shampooed these with a cleaner. Now, do they look new? No, they don't look new. There's ink stains, and I'm not gonna try to, well, you're not gonna be able to remove that from fabric anyway. You might be able to get a little lighter, but the more I focus on the stains, sometimes the more you're going to cause a damage to it. Now on this one here, we've marked an X so we know which side is for which side. Obviously this side is not for this one because there's no X there, so this one goes here. Okay, now we've got the zipper stitched on, so what we're going to do, the stitch right here that you're looking at, the back side of the zipper, this is going to go right under, this is going to line up right on the edge of that stitch there. So when you stitch the second row stitch, it'll be exactly where it's supposed to be. Well, we're going to try to anyway, so let's give that a shot. So now we've got to attach these side pieces also, okay, when we're stitching the last stitch for the zipper. So we got to glue this together. Okay, we're going to stitch one side first, then we're going to put the sliders back on track and then close it up. Then that'll be ready to assemble the bag to the bottom of the zipper. It's been a long day. The bottom of the bag. All right, let's continue. All right, so this one's stitched on. You can tell right where it's supposed to be stitched. I think putting that, following that first stitch as a guideline works out great. So the double stitches are done here. So what we do is after stitching, I usually hammer the stitch down, because what the needle is doing, it's making a hole, obviously, right? So when you hammer it down, it kind of closes the hole. It looks much better than if you don't hammer it. Careful not to hammer the teeth of the zipper. You don't want to damage it. If you damage one tooth, you're done. I mean, you got to start all over again. All right, so let's start on the other one now. Alright, we got this and we got this. So remember I was telling you guys when I was taking it apart, I put an X on there, and there's the X right there. So the bag has a front and back, so you don't want to mess that up. You don't want to put the back piece in the front and vice versa. Imagine the pocket's supposed to be on one side, the customer's using it, and it's on the other side after you finish. You're like, what the heck is this? That would be embarrassing. I mean, have I done that before? things happen, you know. We're only humans. But, you know, when mistakes happen, I think the important thing is to kind of, yeah, absolutely admit it. I mean, there's nothing to hide. You made a mistake. It's nothing to hide. Just see if you can take care of the issue after the fact, you know. Most of the time, things can be redone. It's not a big deal. Besides, if mistakes happen, they're minor things that sometimes I overlook, you know. Alright, let's glue this down and then attach it. And then go ahead and stitch it up, and then we'll put the sliders back on, and it'll bring the two pieces together. Alright, let's continue. Sometimes people ask me, well, how come you missed the part that you were doing? This is just, I mean, the parts that I don't videotape are, you know, parts like this, for example, putting glue, and then, you know, and attaching the other piece to that. It's not really, I don't think it's necessary. But I'll get a comment from somebody, hey man, you missed a part, how come you didn't put that in there? Again, I can't videotape every single detail, or else I'd be sitting here just, hey, maybe I should do a live stream. You guys want to see everything. What do you think about that? Never done that before. I don't even know what it's entailed in doing a live stream, but I'm up for it. Hell, I'm videotaping now. I mean, what's, you know, because doing it live, it would be just live. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But you guys tell me. I mean, if you guys want to see me live stream, so what my 14-year-old boy calls it, you know, I'm like, okay, what's a live stream? I mean, I think I kind of know, but just recording when it's live, I guess. All right, I'm going to take a break now. All right, let's continue. All right, so we've got both sides stitched, okay, and I try to put the sliders back on, and these didn't work, unfortunately. I'd love to keep the LV sliders on there, but you know what? Got to do plan B. Now, I put the Riri sliders on there, and something is not right. This shouldn't happen. I mean, I can see the teeth right here. They're not lining up like that. It looks like something like that, which is not good. Now, never had an issue with Riri zippers like that. The only thing I can think of is, as I was stitching one side, I must have pulled on it too much. Now the teeth aren't lining up. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm going to undo the side of the zipper and then zip it up again, see if it zips. If it zips good, then yes, it wasn't lined up as I was stitching it. So I'm going to do my best to line everything back up again. All right, let's continue. Sometimes people ask me, well, how come you missed the part that you were doing? This is just, I mean, the parts that I don't videotape are, you know, parts like this, for example, putting glue, and then, you know, and attaching the other piece to that. It's not really, I don't think it's necessary. But I'll get a comment from somebody, hey man, you missed a part, how come you didn't put that in there? Again, I can't videotape every single detail, or else I'd be sitting here just, hey, maybe I should do a live stream. You guys want to see everything. What do you think about that? Never done that before. I don't even know what it's entailed in doing a live stream, but I'm up for it. Hell, I'm videotaping now. I mean, what's, you know, because doing it live, it would be just live. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But you guys tell me. I mean, if you guys want to see me live stream, So what my 14-year-old boy calls it, you know. I'm like, okay, what's a live stream? I mean, I think I kind of know, but just recording when it's live, I guess. All right, I'm going to take a break now. All right, let's continue. So remember when I was saying that mistakes happen? Man, this was really, really frustrating. I was about to shoot off a very kind of disappointing email with the video to the company that sold me the zipper. I've never had an issue with these zippers. These zippers are top of the line zippers, and I've replaced zippers in Louis Vuitton bags before. This is not the first time, so something's not right. Anyway, sure enough, it was operator error. I had the zipper backwards. Now, these are, I took it apart, I reversed it, and sure enough, just the Louis Vuitton sliders are working like a charm. Like they should have been from the start. I don't know how the hell I did that. Anyway, I guess I spoke too soon, you know, that mistakes happen, but we try not to make them. But, well, I'm kind of relieved that it resolved it, because I was going to put a stop to the project and call them, wait for another zipper, take the other side out. It was going to be a bigger hassle, you know. Nothing difficult about it, it's just more of a hassle. All right, so let's continue with the right way of putting the zipper on. All right, so you guys remember when we took this bottom piece off. Let's close this up real quick. I kind of looked at it and it looks pretty dirty, right? So I figured I was going to clean it, but you know, I think I'm going to turn it inside out like that, right side out, whatever you want to call it. And that'll give it a little bit of a cleaner surface. All right, and then once this is attached, we're gonna secure the bottom piece on, and then we're gonna go ahead and stitch it, and then touch it up a little bit more, and then we'll be done. All right, let's continue. All right, welcome back. Boy, this one tested my patience today. Now I tried to patina that as best as I could to make it look a little older, worn out. I think it turned out okay, you know, not too bad. So we got a new zipper, new leather bottom. We salvaged that piece, which was the most important, and it cleaned and conditioned everywhere else we could. Yeah, the zipper was an issue. It was my issue. It wasn't the zipper issue, you know. Sometimes you miss the obvious things, and unfortunately it's just part of the job, you know. And some of my sewing machines weren't doing a good job. Just again, it's my fault that the machines weren't doing a good job, because I'm the operator. But anyway, there was a lot of things that kind of got in my way, and you know, I wanted to finish it, just get it done and finish it, because I don't like starting something and not finishing it, because if I stop, then it just sits, and sometimes it takes me a while to get back to it. Now, I didn't take any pictures before pictures. I know you guys always ask that, but somehow I forget, because when I'm trying to videotape, I forget to take pictures. But, you know, this is the best I could do. So I hope you enjoyed my video. All right, so comment, share, whatever you'd like to do. And thanks for joining me. We'll see you again next time. Take care.